Welcome everybody. All you folks out there with a little shredder will be interested in this review. Whether you're trying to train them up and get them throttle ready for moto adventures, you want to just extend their mileage on some walk assist, or keep it turned off and make them work for it, this little 3-in-1 electric balance bike is one you might want to take a look at. Let's get into the review. So a few months back, you might remember we did a strider or balance bike shootout where we put several really awesome balance bikes to the test. And shortly thereafter, Fiido Kidz reached out to us and asked if we'd be interested in testing a 3-in-1 electrified balance bike. Being a dirt biker, motorcycle rider, as well as an avid mountain biker, I absolutely said yes. There was nothing but pros. Well, actually, I guess there is a big con, and that is that my daughter gets hooked on motorcycles. That's a different debate. So the Fiido Kidz bike, why do I really like this thing and think it's worthwhile? So again, it's 3-in-1 capabilities, right? It weighs in about 17 pounds, so it's a little bit heavier because it does have a battery in this down tube. Might be 16 pounds, not 17, excuse me there. Again, battery is here in that down tube, slides out through there. It has a rear hub drive motor with a drum brake that cuts power to the drive unit. Now, the 3 different modes that you can operate on this bike are turned off, in which case it is pretty free spinning. There's very minimal resistance at all. The second mode you can run in is if you have the bike on but in walk assist mode. So essentially there are sensors on board that when the child is pushing in a kind of a balance bike fashion and propelling themselves, the drive unit will then offer power, and you can customize the seconds per push that drive unit will stay on. So it can give you like a really quick short little boost, or it can give you a multi-second assist in between each step or stride of the kid. The third mode, which is where we've primarily been riding this bike along with her wanting to walk it, is the throttle mode. Now with that, again, Fiido has a really cool app that you can open up on your phone, and you can choose between walk assist or throttle mode. And in each one of those modes, you have further customization. But in the throttle mode, you can modify 5 to 12 kilometers an hour, which I believe is like 2.8 up to about 7 miles an hour. We really haven't spent a lot of time, as my daughter just turned 3. She got on this thing about 2.5-ish years old, and so we've gotten up to about 10 or 12K, so 5, 6, 7 miles an hour, but she hasn't quite made it to that 12K mark yet, other than for like some short little boosts out on some grass fields. So let's get into some of the geometry and measurements of this Fiido Kidz electric strider bike. They claim that a rider just over about 2.5 feet up to 4.25 feet or so will fit on this bike. There is a weight limit. I think it's like up to about 175 pounds. I am 180-ish, and I actually rode this down to the park about a block away from the house. My wife and daughter were down there, and she wanted to ride her motorcycle home, so I got on this thing and rode it down. Luckily, it was a very gradual downhill, but it was enough power out of that drive unit to where it would propel me, and the frame has held up. Some of the other notable dimensions here: the overall wheelbase is 910 millimeters. The seat post height, or I should say seat height, goes from 390 millimeters up to 440 millimeters, and the handlebar height is 600 millimeters tall. Again, my daughter got on this just a little bit older than 2.5 years old, and she is pretty short for her age, and she didn't really feel too uncomfortable because of the height. It had a low standover height. The saddle height could get down pretty low, and she very quickly felt comfortable on this bike. I would say like the bigger learning curve of it really was kind of the weight, but now that she's 3 and gotten a little bit stronger, she can kind of pick this front end up to turn it around on a sidewalk, if she's making a U-turn. And of course, the big learning curve there really is the throttle. Luckily, she's only had about 2 whiskey throttle incidences that have kind of put her up a curb or into a pile of rocks, but she's come out unscathed and is happy to get back on the bike and keep riding it. Again, touching on the weight a little bit, it is significantly heavier than a non-electric balance bike. As to be expected, you've got the weight of a battery and a hub drive motor out in the back wheel. But again, I think it's around 16-ish pounds. It's not terrible. You know, it's not anything that someone can pick up with one arm and carry around and, you know, wrestle the other kid and move it around just fine. And it's not too heavy to where my daughter is unable to ride it or have fun on it. Moving into the fit and finish, some of the component details. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty nicely put together bike. It has a pretty nice high quality paint finish on it. You know, kids can be tough on things, just drop them as soon as they're done playing with the toy or anything like that, despite our best attempts to teach them respect. So the thing is held up well. Again, you know, brake levers and the top of the controls here have got some road rash on them from going down a couple of times, but all in all, the paint and frame have held up well. The cable routing here has been nice. No flat tires. The wheels are holding up well. Again, she's about 27, 28 pounds, so she's not really putting down a ton of force or hitting any major jumps on it, but I think for most kids, this thing is going to hold up just fine. One area where kids can sometimes wreak a little bit of havoc is the button pushing. I'm sure we're all aware of that. So there have been times where you need to power on the system here and then with a secondary button up here at the controller. Now, luckily, if your app is not, if the device is not connected on your phone, which you have to do every time the bike is powered up, the system will not operate. Kid won't go into the garage, turn this bike on and grab the throttle, you know, in the midst of the garage and go flying out the door. I have to open my phone, open the Fiido Kidz app, once the bike is on, then connect, and then I have to select which power mode, right? Is it going to be off, walk assist, or throttle only, and then reset the speed every time. So, you know, some folks might find that a little bit time intensive if they just want to get out and go, but I totally think that is the right call from a safety perspective, because now the kid can't just fire this bike up and take off on their own. The downside is that there has been a time or two where she'll turn this button off and leave this button on, or vice versa, and then I can't get the app to like close and forget the bike and then reconnect the bike. So we'll have to go home with the power off and plug the bike in, which kind of like resets it, and then I can reconnect to the app. So that was a little bit of a bummer. Again, it only happened, I think, one time in the several months that we've had this bike and been riding it several times a week. So not a huge deal, but just something to note if you've got a kid that loves pushing buttons all the time, just be aware of that. Speaking of charging and battery life, I can't remember the last time I plugged this bike in, especially when kids are light, you know, 25 to 35 pounds. It's not a lot of load on these motors and batteries. So, you know, we've put in countless trips to the local park, around the neighborhood, and, you know, we're usually riding in like that 8 to 10K speed limit zone. So, you know, she's definitely grown to love the acceleration. One of her favorite things to do is pull over and stop and say, "I'm out of here," and twist that throttle. So she's, scary as it sounds, getting really interested in the acceleration and gripping that throttle. So I guess that's ultimately what the goal was, but now I'm not so sure that was a bright idea. But anyhow, the battery lasts a really long time. I think you can put in a ton of miles on this thing and not be worried. So overall, very happy with the bike. One area that I would like to maybe see a little bit of improvement is the floorboard foot peg area. I understand that they've made it pretty small and tried to make it pretty round for a number of reasons, right? Like, but I have seen it kind of take out a couple of kids' little ankle bones if they put their feet down and the bike is going by. But on the flip side, I would like to see them a little bit bigger so that my daughter could have more purchase for her feet to be on there and feel like it's a little more natural than squeezing her legs in. I don't know if maybe there could be like a rubberized sleeve. Could be something that, you know, you just do at home on your own to make that a little bit softer. But I guess ultimately, right, like there are risks involved with activities, and when you're moving on two wheels, sometimes you can get hurt and you can only do so much, but it would be nice to see just a little bit more foot space there and maybe something that was rubberized. But other than that, I'm really thankful that Fiido Kidz sent us this bike to review. My daughter absolutely loves it, and I am excited that she's starting to learn throttle control a little bit and kind of getting the feel for that. You know, it allows us to go farther, whether it's a walk or I want to ride a bike instead of just have to, you know, walk and be limited to the distance that she can power herself on. I can, you know, turn it off and make her walk a certain amount of distance, and then we've got to bail out for the way home. To me, it's not just about laziness or teaching the kid to rely on power and electricity to do stuff, right? Like, she will learn how to pedal and ride a bike without electricity. She will learn how to ride an e-bike, and she will probably be learning how to ride a motorcycle as well. You know, I'm a fan of all sorts of two-wheeled devices, and I hope to share that passion with my daughter. So to me, it's not about laziness, it's about learning more skills and hobbies in the future, and this one bike accomplishes 3 goals. So there is the Fiido Kidz electric balance bike at $599. It's not exactly the cheapest purchase, but at the same time, you know, for the price of a premium balance bike, I think the upgrade in what you're getting in terms of versatility, added range, and more skills that you're teaching your child on 2 wheels, to me, I'm very stoked we have it in a product I would absolutely recommend. So thank you guys very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new, and stay tuned for lots more mountain and electric mountain bike reviews, and we hope to see you guys out on the trails.